The Eternal Voyager. Prologue. The Curse of Time. There was once a boy named Elias, who lived in the quiet village of Lawn Hollow. It was a place where the seasons changed slowly and years passed without much consequence. Everyone in Lawn Hollow lived simple lives. Except for Elias, he was different from the rest, not in appearance, but in spirit. Ever since he could walk, Elias dreamed of the distant world beyond the mountains, seas, and skies. As he grew older, the tales of old travelers and merchants passing through the village only deepened his longing. He wanted to see the great cities carved into cliffs, the shimmering desert oases, and the misty forests of the north. His mother, an old healer, warned him, "Stay where time is kind, Elias. Beyond Lawn Hollow lies only longing." But he did not listen. On his 17th birthday, as twilight descended and villagers celebrated a harvest festival, Elias packed a small satchel with bread, water, and a lantern. He kissed his mother goodbye, promised to return, and set off into the dark woods that bordered the village. What Elias did not know was that the forest was enchanted. Long ago, it had been cursed by a forgotten sorcerer. Any traveler who wandered into it would become untethered from the flow of time. Some say the sorcerer had cast the curse in a fit of jealousy, angry that others could explore the world while he withered away in his tower. Now, anyone who ventured too far into the woods found themselves at the mercy of time's strange whims, and so the forest claimed Elias. Chapter 1. A World Transformed. For 3 days, Elias wandered through the woods, expecting to reach the far side by sunrise. But the forest was endless. Twisting paths, gnarled trees, and strange, silent creatures followed his every move. When he finally stumbled upon a clearing, a golden city shimmered on the horizon. Relieved, Elias ran towards it, believing he'd escaped the forest's grip. He entered the city with a bright smile, expecting bustling markets and lively people. But something was wrong. The streets were eerily quiet. The once grand buildings were now cracked and overgrown with moss. Statues of kings and gods stood weathered and crumbling, their faces smoothed by centuries of rain and wind. Elias approached an old man sitting by a fountain. "Excuse me, sir," he asked. "What city is this? And why is it so empty?" The old man stared at Elias with cloudy eyes. "This is the city of Arendelle. Empty now for centuries. It was abandoned long ago, young traveler. They say it fell to ruin 100 years ago." "100 years?" Elias gasped. "That can't be. I left my village just 3 days ago." The old man chuckled bitterly. "Then the forest has played its tricks on you, boy. You've stepped out of time's flow. Wherever you came from, you'll find it changed, if it still exists at all." Elias stood frozen, his heart sinking. How much time had truly passed? Was his mother still alive? Did Lawn Hollow even exist anymore? Without another word, Elias fled from Arendelle. He ran through fields and valleys, through storm-tossed coasts and misty moors, searching for any trace of home. But everywhere he went, the world seemed older. Cities had fallen, kingdoms had crumbled, and the stars in the night sky looked different. Chapter 2. The Compass of Ages. In his wandering, Elias met a strange figure, an ageless woman with silver hair and deep green eyes. She introduced herself as Seraphine, a former sorceress who had renounced her magic. She seemed to know of his plight before he even spoke. "You've been touched by the forest's curse," she said softly, as they sat by a campfire one cold night. "Time will no longer obey you. It will twist and bend around you, sometimes moving fast, other times standing still. But there is a way to navigate it. Seraphine handed him a peculiar item, a small compass made of obsidian and gold. The needle spun wildly for a moment before settling in a direction that did not correspond to any cardinal point. This compass can guide you through the shifting currents of time, Seraphine explained. Follow it, and you may find moments lost to history, people, places, or even your past. But beware, the compass does not guarantee happiness. It only shows you where you could go, not where you should. Desperate for answers, Elias accepted the compass. Chapter 3. Across the Rivers of Time. With the compass in hand, Elias began a new journey, not just across lands, but through time itself. The needle often led him to places that no longer existed in the present. He wandered through ancient battlefields, where long forgotten warriors still fought in ghostly silence. He found sunken cities that rose briefly from the depths of the ocean only to disappear again. In some places, entire centuries flashed by in the span of a heartbeat, while in others, time slowed to a crawl. Along the way, he met people displaced like himself, travelers from other eras who had been caught in time's strange currents. Some were hopeful, searching for a way back to their own lives. Others were resigned to their fate, building new homes in lost corners of the world. Elias even found love for a time, in a village that existed only for a single winter. But the next morning, the village was gone, and the woman he loved was nothing more than a fading memory. The years, or what felt like years, took a toll on Elias. His heart grew weary. He no longer knew what year it was, nor how old he had become. The compass remained his only constant companion, its needle always spinning, always leading him onward. But where was it taking him? Would he ever return to the world he had left behind? Chapter 4. The Return to Lawn Hollow. After what felt like lifetimes of wandering, Elias finally saw the compass needle point toward a familiar direction, the east. A flicker of hope stirred in his heart. Could it be leading him back to Lawn Hollow? Could his village have survived the ravages of time? He traveled day and night following the compass through snow-capped mountains and across endless plains. The landscapes had changed drastically, with rivers that now ran in new courses and forests that had grown where deserts once were. But still, Elias pressed on, the memory of his old village guiding his every step. At last, he crested a hill and looked down into a valley. There, nestled between two rivers, was a small village. It was Lawn Hollow, or at least what was left of it. But as Elias descended the hill, his heart sank. The village was not the same as he remembered. The cottages were different, newer in some places, but abandoned in others. The people were unfamiliar, strangers working the fields and tending to animals. He looked for his childhood home, but found only an empty patch of land where it once stood. There was no sign of his mother, or of anyone he had known. The realization hit him like a cold wind. Even if Lawn Hollow had survived, time had not waited for him. The people he loved were long gone. Their lives lived and ended without him. He was a stranger in his own home. Chapter 5. The Whisper of Memories. Lost in grief, Elias wandered the village, hoping to find some trace of the past, something that would anchor him to the life he had left behind. At the edge of the village, he found an old cemetery, overgrown with ivy and wildflowers. He searched the crumbling headstones, and at last he found what he was looking for, a small grave, marked with his mother's name. Tears welled in Elias's eyes as he knelt beside the grave. He had always dreamed of returning home to her, of sharing stories of the places he had seen. But now, all he could do was whisper a quiet apology to the cold stone. He had left to chase adventure, and in doing so, He had lost everything. But as he sat there, the compass in his pocket began to hum softly, vibrating against his chest. He pulled it out, and to his surprise, the needle spun slowly before settling on a new direction, back toward the forest where his journey had begun. Elias hesitated. He had seen enough of the world to know that following the compass could lead to more sorrow, but something inside him whispered that this was the way forward, not to the past he had lost, but to something else entirely. Chapter 6. The Second Chance. Elias returned to the enchanted forest, the place where time had first slipped from his grasp. This time, however, the woods felt different. The trees no longer loomed like shadowy giants. Instead, they seemed to part gently, welcoming him deeper into their heart. At the center of the forest, Elias found a small glade bathed in silver light. In the middle of the glade stood an ancient oak tree, its roots twisting like serpents beneath the earth. Hanging from one of the branches was a strange, glowing orb, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. The compass in Elias's hand hummed louder, its needle locked firmly on the orb as he reached out to touch it. A voice echoed in the air, a voice that sounded both ancient and familiar. "Do you wish to begin again?" Elias hesitated. Could it really be possible? Could the orb undo everything, return him to his childhood, to the moment before he left Lawn Hollow? The temptation was overwhelming. He thought of all the mistakes he had made, the years he had lost. He could go back, see his mother again, and live the life he had dreamed of. But then another thought entered his mind. Would it be right to erase everything he had experienced? The love, the friendships, even the sorrow. All of it had shaped him into the person he was now. If he erased the past, he would lose all the lessons he had learned along the way. After a long moment, Elias smiled sadly. "No," he whispered to the orb. "I don't need to go back. I only need to move forward." The orb pulsed once more, then shattered into 1,000 glowing fragments, which drifted upward like fireflies into the night sky. As the light faded, Elias felt something shift inside him, a sense of peace he had not known in years. The compass in his hand grew still, its needle pointing nowhere. He no longer needed it. Epilogue: The Eternal Voyager. Elias left the forest not as a lost traveler, but as a man ready to face whatever lay ahead. He knew now that time would always be unpredictable, sometimes cruel, sometimes kind. But he also knew that it was not the years that defined a life, but the moments within them. He never returned to Lawn Hollow again, nor did he try to reclaim the life he had left behind. Instead, he became a storyteller, wandering from village to village, sharing tales of the strange places he had seen and the people he had met along the way. Some said he was a wizard, blessed with eternal youth. Others believed he was cursed to wander the earth forever. But to those who truly listened to his stories, Elias offered something far more valuable: the wisdom to embrace every moment, no matter how fleeting, and the courage to keep moving forward, even when the past pulls at your heart. And so, Elias, the eternal voyager, walked onward, his journey never truly ending, but always beginning anew with each step he took. Vocabulary 1. Enchanted definition: under a magical spell made magical. Example: the forest was enchanted, filled with strange creatures and twisted paths. Synonyms: bewitched, charmed, magical usage. Often used to describe magical places, objects, or people, giving them a sense of wonder or danger. 2. Crumble definition: broken into small pieces, typically from age or neglect. Example: the once grand statues had crumbled, their faces worn away by centuries of rain. Synonyms: deteriorated, decayed, eroded usage. Describes physical things that have fallen apart over time. 3. Longing: Definition: a strong, persistent feeling of desire or yearning for something unattainable. Example: Elias was filled with a deep longing to return to the home he had lost. Synonyms: yearning, craving, desire. Usage: often associated with emotional feelings for something distant or gone. 4. Glade definition: an open space in a forest. Example: Elias stumbled upon a glade bathed in silver moonlight. Synonyms: clearing, meadow. Usage: suggests a serene or mystical place in the middle of dense woods. 5. Compass definition: an instrument used for navigation, showing directions. Example: the needle of Elias's compass pointed toward a strange, unseen destination. Synonyms: navigational tool. Usage: can also symbolize personal guidance or purpose beyond literal directions. 6. Hum definition: a low, steady sound or vibration. Example: the compass began to hum, vibrating against Elias's chest. Synonyms: buzz, drone, murmur. Usage: describes quiet sounds that imply movement or energy. 7. Sorcerer, sorceress. Definition: a person who practices magic, often with great power. Example: the sorceress Seraphine offered Elias a way to navigate the currents of time. Synonyms: magician, wizard, enchanter. Usage: typically used in fantasy settings to refer to individuals skilled in magic. 8. Unpredictable. Definition: not able to be predicted or anticipated. Example: Elias knew that time was unpredictable, shifting without warning. Synonyms: inconsistent, uncertain, erratic. Usage: often describes things that behave in random or unexpected ways. 9. Anchor definition: something that provides stability or support, often used metaphorically. Example: Elias hoped to find an anchor to the life he had lost. Synonyms: stabilizer, foundation, support. Usage: in literal terms, it refers to a ship's anchor. Metaphorically, it describes emotional or mental stability. 10. Epilogue definition: a section at the end of a book or story that provides closure or additional information. Example: the epilogue described Elias's journey as one of wisdom and acceptance. Synonyms: conclusion, postscript, final note. Usage: found at the end of narratives to wrap up events or hint at future possibilities. 11. Eternal definition: lasting forever, without end. Example: Elias became known as the eternal voyager, forever wandering across lands and times. Synonyms: timeless, perpetual, everlasting. Usage: often used to describe something beyond human lifespan or comprehension, like love or time. 12. Sorrow definition: deep sadness or grief. Example: Elias carried the weight of sorrow for the years he had lost. Synonyms: sadness, grief, despair. Usage: associated with profound emotional pain. 13. Embrace definition: to accept or welcome something fully. Example: Elias learned to embrace every moment, no matter how fleeting. Synonyms: accept, welcome, adopt. Usage: can mean physically holding someone or metaphorically accepting an idea or experience. 14. Fleeting definition: lasting for a very short time. Example: the love Elias found in the winter village was fleeting, gone by the next morning. Synonyms: brief, momentary, transitory. Usage: often used to describe emotions, moments, or beauty that passes quickly. 15. Resigned definition: accepting something reluctantly without trying to change it. Example: some travelers Elias met were resigned to their fate, content to stay lost in time. Synonyms: submissive, accepting, acquiescent. Usage: implies a sense of giving up but with quiet acceptance. Thank you for watching.